What's up, guys? It's Ty, aka Timberlands, and today I'm going to do a get ready with me video. I'm going to do my makeup, my hair, pick out an outfit, and I'm also going to talk about some of the scariest moments I've had in my reproductive life. So I'm going to talk about my miscarriage. I'm going to talk about implantation bleeding, and then I'm also going to talk about the time that I almost went into preterm labor. So stick around to watch. So first, I just want to mention that I have a completely different way of doing my brows now. I do use mascara. A lot of my friends are like, how do you do that? And if you're my friend and you have asked me how I do my brows, well, here's the tutorial for my brows. So just to hop right into it, as most of you know, I did have a miscarriage several years ago. I was 19 at the time, so I was pretty young. This was around like Valentine's Day in 2013. 2013? Yes, 2013. So this is around Valentine's Day. And so when everything started, I was at my boyfriend's house at the time. I was in college at his apartment. And I had started cramping. So I was just like, okay, like maybe I'm just starting my period or whatever. But I went ahead and like just laid down. And then all of a sudden, like I just experienced the most excruciating pain that I had ever, I would have bad periods where it's like they would get painful, but it was never like that bad. So I was like really worried. And then like the pain was, I'm gonna readjust my camera. Hold on a second. I'm gonna have to readjust my studio area because it's like this setup works for some things and it doesn't work for other things, but whatever. So anyway, back to the story. I can't remember where I was, but the pain got like really, really bad. To the point where I ended up like rushing home immediately because I was so uncomfortable. I was nauseated and I was just like, what the heck is happening? Like, I don't ever get sick like this from a period. And then once I got home, the bleeding started the bleeding had started before I got home, and I lived like right upstairs. So I ended up just going upstairs. But it started before I got to my apartment, and then when I got there, it just got like 10 times worse. And so at this point, I'm like sitting on the toilet, like freaking out, in a whole bunch of pain, like crying. And I noticed like this huge piece it wasn't a clot. It was not a blood clot. It was like this huge piece of flesh, what looked like flesh, just kind of fall into the toilet. So I ended up, I was like, what the heck? So I ended up like getting it out, and then I put it away like in a Ziploc bag because I wanted to take it to the doctor to see what it was. So basically what ended up happening is I had a pregnancy test, I got checked, and yeah, that was pretty much what that was. Very scary experience, especially because I was so young. And I was just like really heartbroken because now granted, I was really young. I didn't need a kid. A kid didn't need me at that age, like at all. But I was really heartbroken because I was just like, it was my fault. I did something wrong. And it was like really traumatizing. And I remember like the next day, or maybe like the next week, I went back to class and I was just like emotional and I couldn't even concentrate. And so my professor told me to come into her office. And I told her like I just needed a couple days to not be in class because like I was dealing with a lot. And then I think we also had like a death in the family around that time. It was just like a lot going on. But I told her what happened, and she really helped me navigate that entire situation, because she explained to me that miscarriages are really common, that she's had a few of them herself, and that it's nothing that, you know, the woman does wrong. The body basically will reject a pregnancy if there's something wrong, or like something wrong with the chromosomes or the baby or something like that. So that, you know, it was still hard, but it helped me feel a lot better. And then after that, I started doing like a lot of reproductive research. And it was an opportunity for me to learn a lot about the reproductive system, and that started me on my journey preparing for my own future pregnancy. Obviously, at that age, I really wasn't focused on having kids, right? But it really put me in a mindset of learning as much as I could about reproduction and pregnancy, so that I could be somewhat prepared for a future pregnancy, or, you know, however you want to say that. That's around the time I started watching like The Business of Being Born, and learning about midwives and Western medicine as it pertains to reproduction, labor and delivery, all that good stuff. And as you can see, it obviously stuck with me, because I ended up having a water birth. So it's crazy how all that stuff kind of meshes together. But ultimately, that was a really difficult thing to experience at such a young age. And I was so ashamed. I didn't really tell anybody what happened, maybe like a few friends, but it took me a while to actually open up to my family members about it, because I was just like ashamed for numerous reasons. But I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, and I just felt bad. So it's something I really just kind of buried. And I think a lot of women do that, but I'm like at a place now where when it comes to stuff like that, I have no shame in talking about it, because it is a reality that we face. And I want other people to feel, not even necessarily feel comfortable sharing their story, but to feel like, to know that they're not alone. Because it's definitely a personal choice if you choose to share something like that. So my eyebrows are probably going to be uneven today. I don't really care. I'm not like in the super mood to fiddle with this for longer than a few minutes. So I'm going to carve these babies out, and then we're going to talk about the next subject. Okay, so today I'm not really going to do I'm not going to do any eyeshadow. I'm going to keep it simple, because it's not, it's Monday. Ain't nobody trying to do the most today. But I'm going to get started on my foundation, and then we're going to get into the next story, which is why I know a lot of you all are here, because I can tell by what videos get the most views, what y'all like to talk about the most. Specifically my mamas. But we're gonna talk about implantation bleeding. And I've talked about it on this channel several times. But it's really one of those things like where you really don't know kind of like how it really affects you until you actually go through it. So I can see like why y'all are so concerned or interested about it, because it's really not, there's really not a lot of information on it. To start. But the first thing I want to say is that if you watch my other implantation videos and you have questions, specific questions, now we'll always give you guys the preface that I am not a medical professional. This is purely off of experience and information that was shared with me by my medical professional, my midwife. And so I am just telling you guys kind of like the information that I've learned and that I know, but I cannot diagnose you. I cannot look into my crystal ball and tell you if you're pregnant. But if you do just need like advice, or like you need some comfort, or you just need to vent, and you just need kind of like guidance on what to do next, I'd be more than happy to do that. Just please make sure that you follow me on Instagram and send me a DM. If you don't follow me, I will probably not see your DM, because they're going to send it to like my junk. So make sure you follow me and then send me a DM with your question or your story, and I will be more than happy to answer you. A lot of you have posted your questions on my YouTube channel, and it's harder for me to get to my comments on YouTube because I get so many of them on various videos. But if you send me a DM, I am most likely going to respond that way. And a lot of my subscribers have contacted me that way. So please, 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 if you want to send me a DM with your story about implantation bleeding, please send that to my Instagram at Timberlands. And I'm going to also put my link tree down there so you guys can find me. But anyway, let's get right into it. So just going back, recapping the story, I found out I was pregnant on July 3rd of 2020. I don't know why I said it like that. 2020. It was July 3rd. And now I was expecting my period on June 22nd, right? So that was the day my period was supposed to start. And it didn't come. And so I waited about a week, where it was like a week late. And then I took a pregnancy test. No, actually, I think I waited to the end of that week, because it was the beginning of the week. It was supposed to start. I waited until the end of that week, within like a few, maybe like 5 days after not having a period. I took a test. It was negative. Okay. So my first test was negative. And this is like, five-ish days after my missed period. So after that, I was like, okay, well, maybe my period's gonna come. Like, I don't know what's going on. So then, I took another test on that next week. So once I hit like a week of, not having a period, I took another test. That test was negative. So a week after my period was late, my test was still coming up negative. And so at this point, I'm really confused. Like, where's my period? Like, I don't have time for this. And it wasn't until literally, 8 days plus 3. It wasn't until 11 days after I missed my period that I actually got my positive pregnancy test, which was on July 3rd. Now, on July 4th, me and my partner at the time, we went to a birthday party or something like that. And I was feeling like I was exhausted. Now, obviously, that's a pretty normal pregnancy symptom, exhaustion. But I was really tired, and I was feeling kind of icky. Like, that icky feeling you get before you start your period. That's how I was feeling. So I ate a little bit. I socialized a little bit at the party. And then it was a kid's birthday party, by the way. It wasn't like a party. But anyway, I socialized a little bit at the party. And then I was just kind of telling him, I'm not really feeling so great. So yeah, we ended up going home. And it was like maybe 7, 8 at night, 7, 8 in the evening. And he ended up leaving to go visit with one of his friends. So I was watching something on Disney Plus, laying in the bed, and all of a sudden I felt, I started cramping, and it was like those low, dull cramps that you get before you start your period. And I was like, oh, I don't feel good. Like, I feel like my period's about to start. Now, obviously at this point I'm freaking out. As you know, from, I experiencing a miscarriage before, I was really, really, really nervous. So I was just like, oh my God, this isn't good. Cramping like this early in pregnancy, not a good sign. At least that's, what they tell you. So I go sit on the toilet, and then I'm noticing, like, when I wipe, there was like this reddish brown discharge. And it was just like like I said in my previous videos, it was as if I was starting my period is what it looked like. So I'm wiping and I'm like freaking out. So I was trying to see if it would like stop, and it didn't. It got brighter. And at that point I'm like, So I contacted my partner, and he was like, he was gonna make his way home, and then we were gonna go to urgent care. So by the time I got to urgent care, I went to the restroom. They had me take a pregnancy test. I pissed in a cup or whatever. And then, sorry, I'm trying to let my concealer like sit for a little bit. But anyway, as I'm wiping, they're like bright red blood droplets like coming down into the toilet. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So I'm literally freaking out this entire time. So the only thing they could tell me is that they would run a blood test, which was going to come back at like 3 a.m. or something. And then they're going to do an intravaginal ultrasound, which is like that probe they put up your vagina. So I basically had to wait around for that. When she did the ultrasound, she was talking to me regular. And I'm like freaking out because I'm like, why is she like, why won't she tell me what she sees? So she's doing the ultrasound and she's talking to me regular or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, what's going on? And so after that, she was like, okay, I'm just going to send the scans over to the doctor, let him look at it, and then he'll come and see you. Between that time, I did a blood test. And they're like, the blood test should be back like, in the morning or something like that. And they basically were just looking for my HCG levels and, other hormonal levels and all that kind of stuff. So at this point, I'm just waiting. And it's like, this was obviously the first year of COVID. So my partner could not be in there with me. And I was just like really distraught. So I really just tried to sleep. When I came back, he told me, he was giving me an overview of the results. And he said, the first thing he said was that my HCG levels were really, really low. Now, based on my period, I should have been about 5 weeks pregnant. And so he was like, for you to be 5 weeks, your HCG levels are really, really low. The other thing is we can't see a fetal pole. Like they didn't really see anything on the scan. And so at this point, he was like, there could be a few things happening. You could be having a miscarriage. It could be an ectopic pregnancy, a threatened miscarriage, or everything could be fine. So I really didn't get any answers, okay? Like I didn't get any answers. And so, hold on a second. So I didn't get any answers that night. I was really frustrated because I was like, I just spent like $700-800 in urgent care just for them to tell me some stuff that I could have found on Google. But anyway, so at that point, the only thing I could do was wait. So that was a really rough week for me. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to an ultrasound tech in a week. And then I'm going to go to a clinic and I'm going to get my levels checked again. So at that point, I was having like, bro, that week I was going through so much like mental and emotional turmoil, where it was like, I was thinking I was having an ectopic pregnancy at one point. Then I started having symptoms of like someone who's having an ectopic pregnancy. I was having like panic attacks, and it was just like, it was all bad. It was really all bad. But I went ahead that next week. I went and, first I went and got my blood levels checked. And then that same day I went and got an ultrasound. So whenever I went and got my ultrasound, she was like, you're measuring about 5 weeks pregnant. And this is like a week later. So she said, you're measuring about 5 weeks pregnant, and this is what I expect to see at 5 weeks. And I was like, okay, thank God. So at that time, my due date was like, my due date was measured at like March 12th or something like that. And then I got my blood test results back, and my HCG levels were normal where I was in my pregnancy. So they were doubling every couple days and everything looked good. So that was like a huge weight off my shoulders. I started having implantation bleeding around 4 weeks of pregnancy. So I was like freshly pregnant. And that's when I had the implantation bleeding. That's why they didn't see anything on the ultrasound. That's why my HCG levels really weren't high yet, because the baby, you don't start getting those HCG levels doubling until the baby implants into the uterus. That's when the baby implants, your body sends out all these hormones like, oh, we pregnant, we pregnant, we pregnant. And then those HCG levels rise, they double every couple of days or so. And so that's why my HCG levels were low, because I had just like, my baby just implanted into my uterus. She just made it down. So that explains everything that happened the week before. And yeah, if you're at this point in the video, my best advice is, one, if you think you're pregnant, take a pregnancy test first. That's the first thing that you should do. First thing that you can do. If you are having what you think is implantation bleeding, go ahead and take a pregnancy test, and then schedule something to see a doctor, like within maybe a week. I would try to wait and see if it picks up like a period, or if you get a positive pregnancy test, and then you pretty much go from there. I don't suggest getting on Google. I don't suggest reading anything on the internet or freaking out about it or anything like that. The best thing you can do is just cover all your bases first, and then just take a chill pill and relax. Again, if you want to send me your story, like you need advice or you're freaking out, you need to talk to somebody, follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram and then send me a DM, and I will get to you on there. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as the implantation bleeding. The last thing I'm going to talk about is preterm labor, but I'm going to go ahead and set my face with some powder first, and then we're going to get into it. Okay, so I have a couple more stories. Again, this is all about like the scary moments in motherhood and reproductive life, health, and being a woman, you know, because we go through some scary stuff pretty regularly. So the last thing, well, not the last thing, but the next story is going to be about the time that I almost went into preterm labor. So I was about 33 weeks pregnant, and this was in January of last year. And mind you, I'm like, you know, pandemic, I'm by myself. My partner at the time was like in basic training. So he's like in the middle of nowhere, remote. So I'm not like, I don't have any support. Like I'm about to be, you know, 36 weeks pregnant in a few weeks, and I'm by myself. So, let me get this open first, because so basically, when I was 33 weeks, wait, let me do this first, because so anyway, I was 33 weeks pregnant, and then I started having like contractions. They were not painful. They're really uncomfortable, but I started having contractions. And I was just really, really uncomfortable. And they started like happening really, really frequently. Like I was having contractions at that point, like every 5 minutes or something like that. So I was like, okay, I need to go to the hospital. So I tell my friend, like, I'm having contractions. It's way too soon. Like, I'm only 33 weeks pregnant. Well, she knew, but you know. And she ended up coming over, and she helped me put together like the car seat, the stroller, all that jazz, just in case something happened. Now, I didn't even have a hospital bag packed at that time, and if you watch my channel, you know I didn't have a hospital bag packed at that time. So I had to like pack a bag just in case. And I just wasn't like at all prepared. I wasn't at all prepared. And so at that point, I go to the hospital, I check in. They're like, how far along are you? I was like, I'm only 33 weeks. I'm having contractions like every 5 minutes. They sent me up to labor and delivery immediately. So I get to labor and delivery. They hook me up. Now, obviously, I'm freaking out, right? Because this whole time I'm planning to have like a natural water birth in a birth center. Like everything was already planned out, and I'm irritated because I'm like, I don't want to have her right now. Like I don't need to have her right now. So they're monitoring the contractions, and the nurse is like, oh yeah, you're contracting like very frequently. Like it's happening at that point it was happening like every 2 minutes. Like it was they were contractions that my contractions were hard enough where they were being picked up on the monitor, and they were coming up like every couple minutes or something like that. And so she was like, okay, we're gonna give you, I can't really remember the name of the stuff they gave me. I can't remember, but she was like, I'm gonna give you a couple things to try to calm the contractions down. So I ended up being in the hospital for like 3-4 hours or something like that. It took like that long for them to actually get my contractions to like settle. And so I'm calling like all the grandparents, my parents, everything, and I'm just like, look, this is what's happening. I'll let y'all know what happens before I leave. And so I ended up getting a cervical check. The OBGYN checked my cervix, and she was like, okay, you're still closed. And I was like, okay, that's good. That's good. And she was like, I'm not really sure what's happening, like as far as why you're having all these contractions, but hopefully this will help you after that. So after that whole debacle, I ended up going to my midwife a little later, because at that point, I think I was being seen like every 2 weeks. And so I went a little later, and basically I was just diagnosed with like an overactive uterus, which I should have saw it coming like early on, because I was having like a lot of Braxton Hicks, but at that time it was supposedly normal. But basically I had an overactive uterus to where I'm just having all these contractions willy-nilly. But the good thing about it is that it was not dilating my cervix. So I was good. After that, I ended up starting magnesium, the calm powder that you put into your water. So I started magnesium to help keep the contractions at bay. And from about 33-ish to 36 weeks, I was on the magnesium. Now, after like week 36, 37, I stopped taking it, because I was like, whatever contractions is going to help her come into this world, like that's what we need to do, okay? That's what we need to do. My last scary mom moment is when my baby was 6 months old. I don't even know if I made a video about this, but my baby was 6 months old, and she was like very feverish. Her fever was like 101, 102 or something like that. I was like, oh no, we have to go to the hospital. So now the first day the fever was very come and go. Like she had a fever and then it went away. And so I was like, well, I don't know what's happening. Like, you know, maybe she's coming down with something, maybe not. It could be a lot of things. It was like the entire day she was fine. And then all of a sudden she spiked a fever again. And I was like, what the heck? So we ended up going to the hospital immediately after that. And when we got there, her fever was like 104. So I'm like, does she have COVID? Like, I'm panicking. Like, I'm crying. I'm panicking. I'm trying not to let her see me panic. But like inside, I'm like, what's happening? They're just like, at this point, trying to run tests. They're trying to get her oxygen levels, her heart rate. Her oxygen levels were like kind of low when we got in there. And I don't know if it was really her, if it was a machine. But either way, I was like, oh no, like I can't. Her dad was in the lobby. They wouldn't let him come back again because of COVID. And so, yeah, like she ends up getting admitted, and they went ahead and after they did like all the vital checks and stuff, they checked her ears, and she just had like a really, 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 really bad ear infection to the point where it was like swollen shut. I had a really bad ear infection like that, and it was to the point where everything in one ear, at first I couldn't hear, and then all the sound was distorted. So that's how bad hers was, but obviously she couldn't tell us how bad it was for her. So at this point, I feel a lot better, but you know, we have to start her on antibiotics and everything. But she, of course, ended up being good. It was just an ear infection, which came at an inconvenient time because she was also teething her first 2 teeth at that time too. So yeah, that was a really terrifying moment. And I'm pretty sure most moms do have, like, I'm gonna have several more terrifying moments, but I would rather not because I can't take it anymore. A lot of people for a while attribute those ear infections to teething, and then a lot of people saying no, they have no association, da 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 da. Well, it's really interesting that a lot of babies they start teething and then they get ear infections around the same time. Also, the one tidbit of like teething causing fevers, all that kind of stuff, people are like, no, they don't cause fevers. There's a lot of mixed science, mixed opinions, mixed studies about it. But I did see that teething doesn't necessarily cause a fever or cause an ear infection. Now, this is just what I've seen and what I believe may be true. It doesn't necessarily cause that, but the increased saliva from teething can cause an ear infection, which then causes a fever. And it's because all the ear, nose, throat, all that stuff is connected. So it makes sense. So if you're like, Ty, teething does cause a fever. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm not saying it does. But I do believe the saliva thing, the increased saliva can cause some funky stuff going on in like the ENT passages. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so I'm going to wrap up this look. I'm just going to do a little bit of white eyeshadow under the eye because I've been feeling that look lately. Do my lips, and then I'm going to get dressed. So stick around. Stick with me. Okay, y'all, so I already picked out my outfit for the day. I'm gonna do this silk button, well, satin, girl, satin. It's satin. Satin button up, some jeans, my thigh-high boots, and I'm gonna throw on some jewelry. I don't know what kind of jewelry I'm gonna do yet, but that's what we're doing today. I'm gonna look real cute. I want to go kind of casual because y'all know I like to dress it up, dress it out. But I'm gonna do something a little more casual today. Yes, thigh-high boots is casual, honey. Okay. And this is the completed look. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And click my Linktree link in the description to follow me on social media. But that is all I have for y'all today. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.